Melanie, thank you so very much for being on another episode of Mental, and really excited to hear your story. And before you start telling me some of your story and things, where can people find you outside of our show?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's an honor to be here. I'm really excited to be here with you guys and share my story and provide value and influence. And I can be found on every platform at Melanie Levitz, and that's Levitz.
ITZ, like Backstreet Boys with a Z,
Yeah.
right? So we were lucky enough to be in each other's company before. I got to meet you in Branson, Missouri, of all places, and we were doing a speaker series down there. But one thing I never got to learn about you there was how you got to be a guest on the speaker series that I was doing. And so what was your journey to becoming a public speaker or just an influencer at all? Because I know you have some military background, but
Yeah.
typically when people are in this field and they're trying to help other people, there's some underlying things or some things you've gone through, right?
Okay, yeah.
And please, only be as vulnerable or as descriptive as you want, but I would love to hear from where you want to start about your journey to becoming a public speaker. What pushed you
Well,
there?
actually, I'm the first toddler ever to be an international speaker. No, just kidding. So I actually come from Miami, Florida.
Okay.
Both my parents were the troublemakers of their family. So I quickly learned that the military was probably the best option for me. I didn't want to go to school right away. And I love travel. It's always been a passion of mine. So
Okay.
I just assumed by joining the Air Force, I could travel the world and get a free education doing it.
Yeah.
So I joined the Air Force right after high school. And I thought that would be my career, 20 years, and then figure out something maybe in real estate. And 14 years ago, I was introduced to a side hustle, and
Okay.
it was all about travel. And I saw a video that allowed me to take vacations at $69 cruises, $200 all-inclusives. So I was all in. Before the video was over, I was like, put me in, I'm in. And at the end, my friend who was an officer in the military I completely trusted, he said, well, you can share this with your friends and make some extra income. And I thought, well, sure. I was going to share it anyways.
Right.
And little did I know the limited belief I had at that time, because I was 28, living paycheck to paycheck. I was actually in school to become a foreign language officer to be able to retire with a higher pay grade. So I had no intentions of earning income outside of the military. And by saying yes, I just shared it with some friends, and in a few years, it actually really grew. The travel industry is a huge thing, so people are always looking for a better way to travel. And when I shared it with people, a lot of them really loved it. And next thing I know, I was able to make more money than I was in the Air Force. So I transitioned to the reserves, which I still serve today, 23 years.
Congratulations and thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. And I actually became the top single female earner in that company before the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
So they started flying me all around the world to teach people how to build the business.
Okay.
And I stood on stages of 5,000 people in Texas, and I was on stages in Singapore and Australia and Cyprus and all across the US. And I really found my passion to be able to serve the community and influence them and motivate them to get up and achieve their goals and their dreams.
And speak. What not having done that before then, speaking wise, what was the spark in you, or what was the mental or emotional motivation was there fulfillment from it, or just like being able to share this travel experience, or was there something that you found inside yourself that it was like fulfilling to go
So
out and
I
talk?
looked back at, why I was so passionate about it. And my mom had gone through a program for drug addiction.
Okay.
And I would go with her to these meetings, and they would ask me as a teenager to speak in front of the room and share my story, growing up as a child in a family with,
Alcoholism?
drug abuse. So I was really inspired that my story was influencing young adults to clean up their own behavior.
Okay.
And I remember precisely at a big convention they had that if you caught the ball, you could go up and talk up on stage in front of thousands of people. And I caught the ball and I went up there, and after I shared and I spoke, so many people came to me and were influenced and inspired to be able to, help their kids or their nieces and nephews because of my story. So when I started speaking professionally in my company, in the travel club, I was like, wow, it really brought me back to that place as a teenager that it's really become a passion of mine to serve and to be able to influence others that what's possible for them.
It sounds like it almost started as and I don't mean it's like as a gotcha moment, but like started as like therapy that maybe you didn't realize was therapy at the time?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Because I had, so not a similar experience, but kind of in a way, there was a time when my mother was living in, I guess what you would call a shelter, when she was pregnant with my younger sister. And I remember going to visit her there, and I wanted to make her happy. I wanted to bring her joy, but I was really shy as a kid, like, believe it or not. And I'm pretty introverted now, even though I seem very much like an extrovert. If I don't have that recharge time and that time to myself, which is something I very recently learned about myself, I burn out very quickly. And so, but as a kid, I would go to this women's shelter, and all these women would be gathered around, and I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and I would go onto the table and I would sing for all the ladies, and they would clap and stuff, and I thought it was so great, but I was too afraid to come out of underneath the table, but it was really therapeutic for me because I got to bring joy to my mother, but like I had to do it like secretly at first, right, like under the table. And like fast forward, I was in kindergarten or pre-K, and there was this play, and I have this vivid memory of it because I was the Jack in the Box, and my aunt and my grandmother spent all this time making me this box of Christmas paper that pops open, and when it was my turn to pop out and sing, I got nervous and I didn't, and I stayed in the box. And the part I remember the most about that was afterwards I cried because I didn't pop out of the box.
Aww.
And so when I got older, I was like, man, I knew there was something in me that wanted to speak, that wanted to engage in people, but I was always afraid of everybody's opinion and validation. And so this recent journey is when I decided to start the show, because I'm like, no, like your vulnerabilities, your past, none of us are without fallacy, and like embracing those things and just speaking about them matter-of-factly has been incredibly liberating for me. And my first step to trying to be a public speaker was also therapy that I didn't realize was therapy, and that was stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a very long time. And when I was on stage, the one thing that I did against myself was I was very, very self-deprecating. And I felt like I needed to be that guy on stage to get the attention of the people in the crowd or get them to buy into what I was saying so they wouldn't think I was arrogant and just up there trying to make them laugh. Because as a kid, I didn't understand the balance between arrogance and confidence.
Right.
Right? And so when you were talking about, kind of what that meant to you in the situation that you're in at the time, in a substance abuse atmosphere, but then being able to speak, I don't know why it reminded me of that portion of my life, but it just seems like it kind of must have been like, woo, like just releasing the Holy Spirit out, right? Like all this stuff that you were unable to say or maybe unable to relate to.
Right.
Now you're in a room of people that can relate to you, and the spotlight was on you. Like, Melanie, this is your time to tell us how you feel and not have to try and maybe find love from somewhere where it wasn't coming from before, right?
Right, exactly.
So, and then that turned into this adventure, right? I mean, did you have any plans of speaking in the military? Like, was that ever part of the military experience?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I remember the first time they told me that I was going to be in charge of an office and run the show, and I was scared, especially that they said it was going to be special operators.
Okay.
And special operators get special privileges. So there's not black and white. It's a lot of gray area.
What does that mean as far as special operators?
The ones that are pretty much going to war with the Army guys. So they're on the ground in battle.
Okay.
So you have your combat controllers, your pararescue guys, those type of people.
Okay. So specialist. Like if you were talking about like medical field, it'd be like the specialist, like what would be like radiology technician versus just like a nurse, right?
Right.
These are specialized individuals.
Special operations. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were in charge of this office.
Yeah. So that was the first time I was in charge of an office, and it all worked out. We have our own tendencies to put up these fears and these blocks of the possibilities, and really it's just a matter of stepping into your best zone and giving your all, and be ready for whatever comes at you. I always look at life as it's not about what happens to you, it's about how you react to what happens to you.
Yeah. I don't know, when we were in that Branson thing, my reaction to that situation was not a positive one. But what stood out in my mind and still stands out in my mind to this day is, out of everybody there, you really made lemonade, right? Like, you got up and you were like, hello, Branson. Like, I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
Because you were like, I'm here. I'm gonna do my best thing here.
Right.
I'm gonna take advantage of the situation in a good way.
Yeah.
And make the best of it. And out of all the incredible people we were on stage with, you took that stand, and I was like, man, that's pretty kick-ass. So you have to have some kind of inner light to be able to bubble through.
And just to give the listeners a little background on the Branson issue, I guess we expected a lot of people to show up and only a few. And for me, it's not about the lot of people. It's about the one person I can affect. Mm-hmm. And if there was only one person in the room, then that was the person I was going to go after and be able to be that inspiration, for them to say, hey, if Melanie could do it, I could do it.
Right.
And that's all that matters.
Well, and that's where the power comes from. Because one thing I've learned, and I don't know if you're a religious person or not, but people can probably relate to this just in any kind of realm. And that is that a pastor friend of mine asked me once, he's like, do you think that the prayer is more powerful from a church of 10, maybe not more powerful. I'm gonna say that, let me precurse this with, this is not verbatim of what he said.
Okay.
Do you think there's more powerful prayer coming out of a church of 10 people or of one of these mega churches? And the point of that was to say that these loyal members of this small church, their loyalty and their faith in God is so strong that it's equivalent to all these people that are kind of maybe half-assing it. Right?
It's possible, yeah.
And with the other part of that comes the old starfish adage. You remember that?
Oh, I never heard that one.
So there's a guy and his daughter walking along on the beach.
Oh, yes. And the one matters that saved his life.
And she's throwing them in.
Threw them in.
And she's like, you can't save them all. She's like, well, I can save that one.
Save that one.
Right.
It gives me goosebumps every time I hear that story.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, it's a good lesson, too, because I think if you have this expectation, which I carried around a lot of weight with me because I'm an empathetic dude, man, I wanted to save everybody all the time.
Mm-hmm, me too.
And when I couldn't, it just ate me up. And what sucked about it was it took all my energy and empathy and emotion that I was supposed to have for the people that unconditionally love me and that were in my, children, family, spouse, or partner, what have you, and then everything else.
Yeah.
And, for me, it was never like that until pretty darn recently. And it was tough because that's one of the things, and again, that's one of the things that I was like, oh, it'd be cool to have. I'll tell you this too, whether you're faithful or not.
I'm very spiritual, yes, I believe.
So the fact that you reached out to me when you did was what I used to call serendipity, and now I call a God wink, because it was about 2 months ago when I called the producer and the director on this show and was like, hey, I want to start this show because I'm on this mental health journey, and right now I'm not really feeling it. Like I'm not fully vested in it. I don't fully believe in this journey yet. And the best way I've always learned to do things is to put myself out there, to talk to other people, learn their stories. And there was a time where I was literally walking around this lake, and it's called Walker Lake. And I was walking like with my hands out, I'm walking, I'm praying, and I've never asked for a sign. I'm really connected with nature. I love nature. And I was like, hey, if I'm on the right path with expanding this production thing out of our events company, show me a sign. Make it a sign that is undeniably you. And I thought somebody at that moment just about threw something in my head. And I looked up and back, and there was a red-winged blackbird had flown down and pecked me dead center in my head.
Oh my gosh.
Like it was, I couldn't even, there was nothing.
That's amazing.
I'm like, what? And something was like urging me to take this walk and all this stuff. It was pretty wild.
Wow.
And I knew I was on the right path. And since that's happened, I've committed and I've let go of a lot of things, in the sense that like, hey, if it's meant for me, it'll be.
Yes.
And just, I got to lay at the foot of the cross and let it go.
Yeah.
And things have snowballed, and including you out of nowhere were like, hey, dude, are you still in Missouri? Because I'm coming through. And I'm like, not only am I in Missouri, but would you be on my show?
Yeah.
And there was no guest lined up for the time that you were in town. We had one Thursday. We had one last Thursday.
Wow.
This Tuesday, there was no guests. So the stars aligned, and that's why I'm like, oh, man, this is cool, because now I get to finally hear your story and your journey.
There's definitely no coincidences. And as far as religion, I believe that it's been created to separate man. I was born Jewish, and as I started building this business, a lot of the people were believers of the Bible and Christ, and it had me start thinking like, okay, well, what's going on here, and why is it that Jews don't believe in the Second Testimony? And I started discovering for myself and getting a spiritual awakening. So I am a believer of the Bible, and I'm very spiritual, but I don't consider myself of a religion.
Sure.
And I found, like you know, once you step into your zone and you allow the Spirit to work through you, everything is possible.
Yeah.
And every day you can wake up with a blank canvas and create. And we are, you know, in the Bible it says we are a direct image of God, and God is a creator, so we are creators.
I talked about that a lot recently.
Yeah.
Because of my previous inability to love myself. And how silly that must be, because if I love God, how can I not love myself?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and there was something that it probably wasn't, with all the AI and stuff, it probably wasn't like really Denzel Washington's voice. Because there was all these TikToks that are like, it's Denzel's voice,
That's
or like
funny.
even images of him,
Yeah.
but it's not him. And it was like, it said, I mean, we'll do this on the spot. We can edit it out if you don't like the results, but without thinking about it, in 3 seconds, name 3 people you love.
So the funniest thing is I told my husband that he's number 3. He's like, what? What do you mean I'm number 3? I should be number 1.
Yeah.
And I said, no, babe, God is first, I'm second, and you're third.
You already got it. You already know.
I already had the answer.
Because I did it, you know, and I was like, da-da-da-da, you know, and then like I'm listening to that, because I'm doing it as I'm watching it.
Yeah.
And at the end part, it's like, you just did that and you didn't name yourself. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, and
I
he was
didn't name
totally
myself.
okay with that when I said that. And
Yeah.
I told him, I was like, I have to be first, because if I can't take care of myself, how can I take care of you?
Yeah, and if you're not bringing your best version of yourself to any situation, whatever that relationship is, or your happiest self, my biggest, I think, I would say, what's the most positive way to say it to myself, is one of the weaknesses I had was that my lack of self-love had created a codependency with my partners. And that was a big burden for them to carry, to have to be responsible for my happiness.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
how can you focus on your happiness if you have to protect my happiness too?
Right, yeah.
When in fact, if we're both happy within, then that happiness is multiplied, right?
Yeah.
And then that's one of those things where giving 100% to a relationship isn't 50-50. It's 100-100.
Yeah.
Because you got to bring your best version of yourself.
And when you put yourself first, you start attracting people that want that.
Yes.
And people start showing up in your life and out of nowhere, and you're like, wow. And, you know, just like, I don't believe in coincidences.
No.
Everything is in alignment as the way it's supposed to be. And when you can protect yourself and love yourself first, everything else falls in place.
And inspiring others is something that I've always strived for but never done until I started living for myself.
Yeah.
Like in the last
Isn't
month,
that
I've
funny?
had 3 or 4 people be like, dude, your energy is incredible. Like, I just want to be
Yeah.
around it. Like, I
Yeah.
want to feel it. And I'm like, this is the first time in my life where I'm not trying to give off that image. Like,
Right.
this is the first time I'm not trying to influence you to like me.
Yeah.
And then we created a better strength and bond because, like you said, those people that are for you come around you.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like it's magnetic.
Yeah.
And
And
so
the
you-
ones that don't, you find that the ones that don't find themselves worthy enough or in love with themselves enough, they tend to pull themselves away from you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
you are
because
what you
it's-
attract,
Because it's a strong energy.
or you attract what you are.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a strong energy to be around.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll tell you what, completely candid with you, your bubbly energy made me a bit uncomfortable in my life at that time.
Okay.
And I love that we are able to come back together now because when you called me on nowhere, I was excited. I've told a lot of people, I'm like, Melanie's come on the show. I'm like really excited to have a conversation with her again where I can really just revel and enjoy your inner peace and happiness.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Because when you are in a dark place, like you said, that
Yep.
light is scary.
Yeah.
So when you're full of demons or however you want to place it, somebody that comes around with a bright energy is intimidating.
Yeah.
Because in actuality, I think what the fear was there is you would be one of the people to be able to call me on my bullshit,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Because when you're not being your genuine self, it's pretty apparent to people who are their genuine selves.
Yeah.
And so I had been reserved with those situations back then. I could go in and swing around with the best of them and mingle with anybody, but when I would meet genuine people who were truly happy, which
Yeah.
is pretty damn rare too.
It is.
Like, I didn't realize how
unfortunately.
rare it was.
Yeah.
But when you see it, it's like, it almost reminds me of like Constantine, the movie with Keanu Reeves.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they'd be
Yeah.
like scared around him.
Yeah.
And they're like,
And you know, it's really not people's fault. It's the way that our communities, our culture has brought us up. And especially now with social media, they're really just trying to create us as individuals. And the what are the masks that you put and you're in the virtual world?
Yeah.
That is like becoming way overboard. You know, people are just being so much more isolated. And unfortunately, you know, it's causing a lot of mental issues and suicide.
Out of the woodwork. I've seen so
really
many
bad.
of my friends that are our age
Yeah.
go through this in the last year.
Yeah.
Like
it's really bad.
one of my dear friends, we spent the better part of 5 months trying to shake it and help and get him help. And thank goodness he went to a place in Utah for a while, and now he's in another place, like a step down program.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, it's like he's a totally different person.
Yeah.
And he's got so much relief and so much
Good.
responsibility for his actions.
Yeah.
And not guilt.
Yeah.
Taking responsibility for my actions versus feeling guilt for my actions was a line that I had not been able to define before.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I have my own issues. You know, we all do. And it's important to reach out to people and make sure everyone's okay. But when people are going through situations in life, and, you know, just 4 years ago, I had the worst year of my life. Our travel company, which during the pandemic, nobody was traveling, filed bankruptcy. And my stepmom of 20 years had passed away from stage 4 lung cancer. And my mom, that I, you know, wanted to buy a house for her that she was living in, stopped paying me rent, and all these things were coming down on me. And it was like, okay, God, the only thing I know to do is put my right foot in front of the left right now. And I just prayed. And the biggest thing is when we're going through challenges in life is to do the things that you love. Whether for me, it's dancing, it's music, it's calling my best friend, it's crying, it's venting, you know, and knowing that by reaching out in community, everything is possible.
Yeah.
But staying alone is the worst thing that you could do for yourself.
Well, then you're just self-reciprocating that same, like, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm worthless, I'm tired, I'm bored. And if you are thinking you are those things, you are all those things.
Yeah.
Right? And like
Exactly.
The ability to figure out that by far, the second place is so far down here, by far, your biggest enemy in this entire life is you, is nuts. Like, I just thought about the other day what my biggest struggle was, and I compared it to like when I was growing up, you know, and we're about the same age, when we were growing up in the 80s, I remember like everybody in grade school, like most of the girls wanted to be marine biologists.
Okay.
Right? And like I remember several people being like, I want to be a marine biologist.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know if it was because like Free Willy was popular at the time, or like that Elijah Wood movie with Paul Hogan and the Flipper remake.
Oh yeah.
Flipper. But a bunch of people, and I don't know any marine biologists. You know, and so what that told me was that so many people get their dreams crushed along the way. They don't do it. And I strived so hard for everything except for the one thing I wanted. And when I grew up, all I really wanted to do was feel unconditional love. And I never lived in the same home for longer than 3 years at a time.
Wow.
Until I was in freshman year in high school.
Yeah.
And that was with a third party, essentially, because I had my grandmother and my mother back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then here you go over to your aunt. And so I've been working a lot with an inner child therapist.
Oh, that's good.
And so I'm working, specifically right now, I'm in the 1st and 3rd grade era.
Yeah.
But we kind of had to backtrack and figure out that where was the dumping point? Where did I feel worthless? And I stopped growing, I stopped maturing emotionally.
Oh, wow.
And it was at 14. And it was because I did everything I could. I excelled in academics. I was in the gifted programs. I won awards, geography Bs, book writing, all this stuff. Did really well in sports. Yet couldn't figure out how to get my grandmother or my mother to unconditionally love me enough to let me stay in one place. And then when I got sent over to my aunts, now again, this is how I perceived it. This is in hindsight, my grandmother had 2 people she unconditionally loved, her daughter and her grandson. So for her to keep trying to place us together was what she thought was best for her daughter and her grandson.
Right.
Tough place to be. But when I went over to my aunts, which in actuality was just because I got into so many fights and so many things during this time period that I wasn't allowed these other 2 schools. So it was like this aunt or this aunt. And I knew I could get away with more of this aunt. So I went over here. But I didn't realize how it affected me at the time. And it was basically, that was the point when I gave up on loving myself. And I hadn't picked that idea back up until I was 40 years old.
Wow.
And so I lived with that from 14 to 40. And I could have saved myself so much trouble.
Right.
But I think the reemergence and the idea that I've really accepted now is, did I save myself that trouble though? Because if I hadn't had
Exactly.
where I wouldn't be this guy.
Exactly. You know, you
So-
have to go through what you need to go through to get where you are today. And a really good book I highly recommend, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Okay, yeah.
And in The
Heard of this.
Secret, it talks about, you know, we, especially women, we think that we can multitask, but you're really not multitasking. You're switching back and forth.
Okay.
So to have that understanding that it's not.
Switching back and forth between what? When you
So if for example, it's impossible to think about what's one thing that you love the most?
my children,
Okay. And what's one thing you hate the most?
repeating myself more than 3 times.
Okay. So as you're saying, you're repeating yourself more than 3 times. You can't say that you're thinking about you love your children. It's either one or the other. So you're switching back and forth your thoughts. So if we know that that's true, then if we were in a situation that we're feeling doubtful, regret, anxiety, sadness, all these things that are negative, then it's just a matter of thinking, okay, well, if I think what's positive in my life and what's working and what I'm grateful for, you know, I have a bed, I have running water, I have toilets, you know, all these things, the little things, air condition, you know, a roof, then you start you start changing your mindset to feeling good.
Yeah.
And I also saw this quick reel the other day where the psychiatrist was like, okay, I want you to say ha. And the guy said ha. And he's like, now she said, do ha ha. And then go ha ha ha, and ha ha ha. Yeah. And it's like, you got to do it so many times. And by the time they were like cracking up, just because, yeah. So you're literally changing your perspective, your way of being just by switching your mindset. Yeah. It's really that simple. But because it's so simple, people don't do it.
Yeah. The simplicity was what, just lighting your own fire. So, you know what did it for me is I was like really depressed. Like it was 3 months ago. I'm like, oh, just sit on my couch. Really, and it's like, you know, I've always prayed for patience. The 2 things I've primarily paid for is patience and motivation.
Okay.
Because I didn't know until later on in life, and I figured this one out a while ago, is that my motivation, my lack of motivation, I'd say, was because I didn't have a direction or a purpose. So in my ADD, that combined with it, and just like, this really excites me for this week. This really excites me for this week. This really excites me for this week. And so it's hard to like stay on purpose, stay on track. But the patience thing, you know, like that, it's Evan Almighty, the sequel to Bruce Almighty. And Morgan Freeman is like, do you think if you ask for courage, does God give you courage or to give you the opportunity to be courageous?
Exactly.
And I thought that my patience had come, because what is weird is I still prayed for it, but I thought I had received that with bringing in my son full time to live with me. And in fact, I had not. And what I realized is that at some point in my life, I was going to have these reciprocal patterns of down and up and down and up. And that the only way that God knew to bring me close to him was to what another father might compare to like smack me in the back of the head. And he's like, hey, listen, I'm going to take this thing you love so very dearly away from you. And I'm going to make you be really patient until you get that back. And whether you get it back with that person or somebody else, you're not going to have anything in between there. You got to look at me. You got to watch me. You got to trust me. Follow me. Otherwise, you'll never have any of that. And I was like, whoa, that's true patience. Yeah. And then in that part where I was trying to motivate myself, I was like, it was survival situation in a sense, right? Because I have to take care of my children. I have to take care of myself. So you really are in survival mode. Yeah. And I thought about it, and it instantaneously hit me how silly it would be to be left in the middle of the woods in a survival situation, build a campfire to keep yourself warm and cook your food, and then wait for lightning to strike. You would die. Yeah, right? For sure. And so it was like, what am I doing? Why am I looking at this campfire for all these years and just waiting for somebody else to come light it for me? Mm-hmm. I have to light it. I have to light my own happiness. I have to light my own truth, my own love. Exactly. Nobody's going to come through that forest when you're in a survival situation. Yeah. And you have no signal going up, and you have no smoke, and you have no heat, and light your damn fire. Yeah. That was the breaking point for me, where I was like, no more. And I got up and lit my fire a little bit of time every day, and I do it a little bit of time every day because no matter what happens in my day, I'm going to go to bed tonight knowing that I hit the gym today. Yeah. I prayed today. I reflected today. Yeah. So I've softened my heart. I've increased my mental capacity. I've grown closer to my faith, and I've gotten physically better. So,
yes, you're winning.
So whatever else happens today,
Doesn't
screw
matter.
it, because tomorrow I'm a better version of myself.
Exactly.
And so, man, it's been like a really liberating thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like you've had that gift somewhere. That's why I was curious, like, where did it come from? That's what I wanted to know.
Well, I also prayed for patience one day.
Really? Yeah.
Be careful what you pray for, because
Okay.
you're absolutely right. You don't just get patience. You're tested to earn patience. And I was in the worst relationship in my life. But it taught me patience. It taught me my values and where I belong. It's an amazing thing. But yeah, I forgot where I was going with that.
Well, just how you gained that inner light and inner happiness.
Yeah, so I ended up
because ironically,
investing.
I was in the best relationship in my life.
Yeah.
And I was forced to be patient because I wasn't bringing my best self to the table.
Okay. Yeah, so I've invested over $100,000 in personal growth and development. And I find that the biggest investment in this world is yourself.
Yeah.
And people are, inspired the
It's
way.
a high return.
Yeah, huge. And I'm so grateful, especially, learning what not to do growing up.
Yeah.
I had to really work on myself, and knowing that recently I found out I'm the only child from my dad's side, and he always wanted a boy. So he raised me like a boy. So I know how to play really good pool and sports and stuff like that and fix cars. But I had to learn how to become the wife that I am today in order to attract the husband that I wanted my value to be worth.
Yeah.
So a lot of investment in myself. And still to this day, I'm always constantly reading books, listening to audios, I'm actually in Missouri for our Freedom Academy event. So always attending seminars and personal growth developments.
Where's that being held at here?
At the Marriott downtown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got a lot of conventions down there.
Yeah.
I'm not too far from there. I'm in what they call Kirkwood area here. So
Okay.
kind of right down the street. But that's really cool that it's so weird too, like when you are in this headspace, the similarities that you find in other people about how they got to that headspace.
Right.
Right? It's like I'm not talking to anyone yet that hasn't achieved happiness without trauma.
For sure.
You got to walk through the fire.
Yeah.
Or that there's people that just live their stagnant life and they're humdrum. And it's like, man, I used to think that what divides these people from these 1%ers or these 10%ers even, right? Because I'm certainly not a 1%er, but I like to think I'm a 10%er at least, right? I'll give myself that much credit. And it's just the at what point do you stop getting up? And I think that you're a person, and I'm on my journey to become a person that never stops getting up. That's the whole point of it.
Yep.
Like I'm not gonna get kicked in the teeth and be like, all right, I've had enough.
Yeah.
You get up and you're like, come on.
Yeah,
give me some more.
Right. And people fail to realize that when you're out to set something big for yourself or for your family and your community, you're going to be faced with the biggest challenges, because those challenges are there to embrace you, to move you forward, and to excel you into the person that you need to become. So when I'm up to great things and I see a challenge, I'm like, bring it on, let's go, because I know for me that's a growing season. I'm in a growing season, and I love to grow, and I love to be, get better and always be the best version of myself.
There's Mike Tyson was talking about how there's beauty in it rock bottom.
Yeah.
There's beauty in that pain, that struggle, that rebirth.
Yeah.
So I'll part with this, and then I'll ask you, to give us some parting wisdom.
Okay.
But based on our conversation today, one thing that stuck out in my mind, and I'm 100% sure he didn't coin this phrase or make this up, but my grandfather used to say that a good sailor, calm seas don't make a good sailor.
Yep.
Right? And that is to say that you have to weather the storm in
Yeah.
order to know some stuff. And that is very profound to me in my life in this time. And so I have a couple different things that I try and instill in my kids about not giving up. And the one is that we created is the rain dance mentality. So in my house, we talk about it often. When my younger son especially wants something, my older son would sit down, and I remember watching him try and play the piano one time, and he was listening to his phone, and he was playing this over and over again until he got the intro to this thing right. He never played piano or took piano lessons. He's just a very determined dude. He's the James Brown of our family, hardest working man in the family.
Nice.
But my youngest one he would struggle with, I'm not good at it yet. Or like I remember one time he didn't want to play soccer because he's like, I'm not as good as they are. and I never will be. I'm like, dude, that's not true. They just started earlier. And so we are the rain dance family because I say, listen, the reason that the Native Americans, the reason that the rain dance worked for them is because, and my grandfather used to tell me this, it's not because they would dance until it rained, right? So whether they had to dance for 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years, you don't stop dancing until it rains. So in other words, we don't stop working towards our goal until we reach our goal.
Exactly.
And if you do that, it always works.
Always.
But if you have a moment of a lapse and you say, oh, it's not going to work, I'm going to stop raining, and then it rains by chance over here, then you don't believe in that dance anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't know, I'm not even in control of it.
Yeah.
So dance until it rains. That would be my parting wisdom. What is something that maybe was passed on to you or that you've created yourself that might be impactful to hear?
Well, going back to the same thing I said earlier, it's all about your mindset. And in the Bible, it says a mustard seed, of belief, of faith. A mustard seed, very small, little seed of faith can move mountains. But it also goes back to a mustard seed of doubt can deter all things as well. So when I'm achieving something, I know that if I fail, I'm failing forward because I'm not giving up.
Right.
I'm still moving forward. And if you look at all great inventors and great success stories, Disney, KFC, Paul Mitchell, they've all started
Ray Kroc.
They all started from rock bottom.
Yeah.
And they didn't give up. They kept going and going and going. A theme park in Florida on swampland, who would want to invest in that? Disney had to go over 300 bank opportunities to get declined until he finally said yes. What if he said, oh, I'm going after 300, everyone said no, I might as well
20.
give up. After 20, who does that? But he didn't, he believed. He had a mustard seed of faith that it would happen. And Disney today is the biggest theme park in the world. And
I wonder what those other 299 banks were thinking.
I know, right? Like, dang, shoot. So as long as you're not quitting, you're not giving up, and you're failing forward. Les Brown always says, make sure if you fall on your back so you can get right back up and keep pushing forward, because it is certain. It is with certainty that if you keep doing it, you keep trying, you keep pushing forward, it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed.
I love it. And thank you so much for reaching out and coming on the show and being a part of this. And just for anybody who's listening or watching, one more time, Melanie Levitz, Levitz.
Yep.
At all platforms. We're talking Instagram, social media,
LinkedIn,
Facebook,
Snapchat,
LinkedIn.
everything.
Awesome.
Yep. Even MelanieLevitz.com.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Or my phone number, 318-218-6680. Text me. Say hello. I would love to follow you.
There you go. You're like Kim Possible.
Yeah.
Text me, beat me if you want to reach me.
Yeah.
All right. You remember that show? Did you ever watch Kim Possible?
No, I haven't seen that.
I had kids. That's my excuse.
We're working on that.
All right. Well, thank you again so much. And thank you to all at home. And please take a second to go ahead and like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.